Ne-am întors cu însărcinatul cu afaceri al Argentinei la București. Este vorba despre Carlos Hernandez. Vorbeam cu domnia sa am vorbit despre Argentina, despre frumusețile acestei țări, despre muzica extraordinară și formele de dans care merg mai degrabă spre artă în America de Sud, absolut senzuale și extraordinare și pe care nici eu, nici dânsul nu le stăpânim prea bine, dar ne plac să le vedem. Carlos, I will ask you something else now, because I believe that a little bit about Argentina we talked and we will continue to talk, because I find it a very interesting country, and the continent itself. But you, for example, had at some point in your history, in your recent history, not going so much in the past, a conflict with a big nation, which is United Kingdom. I don't want to, I couldn't imagine us being in conflict with the UK, but you had the guts to oppose to UK and fight for the Falkland Islands. Of course, you lost the battle. But still, you showed to a big empire, which was at the time. Now it's not so much. They more brag about it than they are. They don't listen to us, so we can say it. I'm joking because we have many British friends. But the force of the British Empire at that time was much stronger than now. Now, tell us your version, your story about this war, because I'm sure the British have their own. Why the conflict started, how it started, where is the situation now with the Falkland Islands?
Well, first of all, you know that according to United Nations resolutions, the name is Islas Malvinas, Falkland Island.
Yes. Sorry,
so
I used the British
sometimes with the British colleagues, in order not to get into trouble, we say the islands. And we know what we're talking about.
Yes.
But there are two different things. One was that war battle, or how you want to define it. We had at the time a military government in Argentina.
Yes.
It was not a democratic government.
It was not.
And in the UK, a difficult situation for the Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. I think both of them tried to play with this international issue. That's one thing. That's not related to the issue in itself. I mean, the issue in itself is simple, but you need simple for us, but for foreigners you need a TV program, so we cannot go into detail.
Okay.
I mean, the Islas Malvinas, as I will call them, are definitely an integral part of the Argentine territory. There's no doubt for Argentines about that. You know, Argentines might have very different points of view about many issues, controversial ones. There's only one that unites every single one, left to right, center, whatever. This is the question of the Islas Malvinas. We're all behind that. We're not talking about war at all. We're talking about our rights.
Of course.
I mean, the story started on the 3rd of January 1833, when the UK somehow broke the territorial integrity of Argentina. They went to the islands, which have legitimate authorities. They evicted them, and they prevented them to return, and also they prevented all Argentines from mainland to go back there. So we made this claim at the United Nations since 50 years ago, and regional fora, other international fora. We have a vast majority of support, there's no doubt.
From the region?
Not the region, the world.
From the world?
Yeah, also from the Commonwealth.
Yes.
I mean, the thing is that it's not only a feeling, it's supported by substantive international law. Basically, because I don't want to be long on this.
No, it's no problem. Take your time.
It's still on it. I mean, the issue is going on. It's in our national law, our constitution, that this is to recover the sovereignty of Argentina on the islands is in our national law, saying that it's a permanent and unrelinquished goal. So it's forever till we achieve it. The thing is that United Nations and the Decolonization Committee, which belongs to the United Nations, they have many resolutions, decisions, where they recognize there is a colonial situation, there is a dispute of sovereignty, and they always called for negotiations, bilateral negotiations, in order to find a solution. Well, that's the only thing we want to do, to sit at the table and negotiate with the British. That's all.
Yes.
Independently of that, if we go, you mentioned how is the relationship now. Well, we come from 12 years or 14 years of no dialogue, confrontation, which has been completely changed since December 2015 with President Macri, with the new government.
Yes, yes.
This dialogue, President Macri already, if we are talking about this 6 months, he had 2 meetings with the ex-Prime Minister Cameron, our Minister of Foreign Affairs with her counterpart. Many high officials and ministers from the UK came to Argentina for business.
That's good.
The relationship is at its best. I mean, it's, this is something very positive. And in between, we are talking about some measures, confidence-building measures, between Argentina and the British regarding the island, to have a civilized situation. Of course,
yes,
we are always going to claim for what we consider is our territory, based in international law, and it's simple if you look at the map, where is Argentina, where's the UK related to that?
I agree with you fully, so you have a supporter in me, for sure. But I want to ask you something. It's easy to explain to the people, because tell us how many Argentinians are living there, and how many British?
Argentinians, in fact, are not allowed to live there.
Are not allowed anymore?
No, and more than that. I mean, but this is not the British attitude. No? Most of the inhabitants are British. It's not the British attitude. It's somehow some reaction of the islander. This is one thing. On the other side, for example, I went many years ago to Fiji for a decolonization committee meeting. I was posted to New Zealand at the time. They had no one to send from the States, so they said, okay, he's close to Fiji, he goes. And I know the issues, simple, for me. Yes. I have a sort of a fight in the negotiations with the representative of the Islas Malvinas, who was British. We finished. I think that I did my best, that I won. Went at the end of the day to a bar to have a drink, and then I see him coming. He asked me, may I have a drink with you? And I have to say, I am nationalist, in the good sense.
Well, me too. Well, we love our countries.
I found it a little bit special, strange, but since it came from him, I accepted. I said yes. And since then, independently of our position, we have a private relationship. You know? We write each other, or we call each other for Christmas time. For he's an older man, which he has a very important prize from the British Queen, and I mean this shows that at least you can. It's not affecting your private life. It should not affect your private life.
Yes.
No, we're all humans. We don't have to be at war. We have to find other solutions.
That's true. The peace is always should go before the war, and diplomacy before guns. But I want to ask you, how are the Argentinians looking to this issue of the Falkland? Okay, the Malvinas Islands, the islands, as you mentioned, because if now the British are living there, and the people, the Argentinians living there, decided to leave the islands, an interest must exist. So I'm trying to figure out if it was a geostrategic or geopolitical interest of UK, or why these islands are so important that they started a war, which was in a time where it was not in the advantage of UK to start it, even though you had a dictatorship, and many people died. In this war,
many
especially from Argentina, but also British.
Also from the British side.
So right. I want to understand why such a nation would fight for these islands, which are not close, as you mentioned, to their nation.
Well, you know, you have fisheries, you have oil, you have relation to the Antarctica.
Yes.
It could be considered, if Argentina were not reliable, could be considered a strategic point. But it also depends from us to have a good relation with the British. We have a history with the British. You know, it's nothing new. I mean, in our history, they were everywhere.
Yes.
You can. Our people could like them or not. It happened the same with the Spanish. It means it's a commercial interest, probably. No idea. I cannot go deeply on this.
Of course.
But I think the best way is to sit down, negotiate, and live together with each other.
I asked you this because your explanation was very good, very to the point, because the people must understand. Sometimes in international relations, it is happening now. For example, in the entire world almost, principles are left aside, and actually the actions of some nations are just to grab resources, and they forget about principles and all that. We're not blaming, because it was happening many years ago, the British government, which is now there, or the British part, the British people is not against them. It's just to explain, other actions which are taking place now. We are in the situation with in our neighborhood with the Ukraine and so on. But I will not put you to comment this, because it's far from your country. What I want to ask is still, how do you see now the relationship with your neighbors? Because you have interesting neighbors. You have Brazil, as you mentioned, your bigger, I don't know if it's your bigger brother, but it's, a competition for this eccentricity, I would call it. It's Argentina and Brazil are two countries which in the eyes of Romanians and everybody, it's full of glamour, full of life. I mean, this is our impression from here. I don't know if I go there how I will see it. But you have also Bolivia, you have Peru, you have Chile. I mean, how do you see? I mean, you had conflict with some of them in the history, now not anymore. How is the relation with all these countries?
Well, now fortunately, South America is living democracy.
Yes.
Now we are family. Argentina has excellent relationship with all of them. We try to improve them. Of course, Venezuela is living a special moment.
Yes, unfortunately.
And we don't mix up in those things. I mean, they have to solve it by themselves, and this is what we expect. But many people from Venezuela is coming to Argentina at the moment, young people. Brazil has this political problem that now tends to stabilize. I mean, we don't intervene on this, but for us it's very important that Brazil finds its way, because they are our neighbors, our friends, our brothers, and our exports goes over there.
Exactly. It's a big market.
And the issue is simple. I mean, I think it was, if I remember well, 1991, I don't have it clear in my head. I think it was 1991 when the idea of Mercosur arrived to South America, which was a step towards the European Union system, for example, just to compare both. The idea was to have Brazil and Argentina together at a certain stage. And if you have Brazil and Argentina as a sort of one country, sort of one nation, many things can change in the world. It's an issue of resources, political presence. We are excellent. We are with each other. We have an amazing relationship. Also tourism, and Brazilian women married to men and the other way around. This it's simple. Like with other Latin American countries, it's exactly the same. So I have to say that we don't have any conflicts at all at the moment. So
well, in this case, I will ask you something else. How do you feel as an Argentinian first, and before being a diplomat, that the legacy of Simón Bolívar is living now in South America? I mean, do you still believe in a united South America? I mean, how are the Argentinians or the others from your neighborhood reporting to his legacy? Well,
it's an interesting question, because I have to say that Bolívar was very important for the north of South America and part of Middle America. Or Central America, sorry. But it was a different history in the South. Of course, if you call the legacy of being one Latin American Union, that was his legacy, like many other heroes of independence.
Sure.
In fact, in countries like Chile, Argentina, or Peru, the real hero is José de San Martín, which is an Argentinian who crossed the Andes to liberate Chile, to liberate Peru, and he's also the one who created the flag of Peru. So then he has his meeting with Bolívar. But the legacy is not Simón Bolívar, it's both of them and many other heroes of independence. All of them fought for the same thing. You have a united South America or Latin America.
This is what I'm asking you about, not only Simón Bolívar, but about all the heroes of of the South America and Latin America. Do you believe in a united Latin America?
Well, this is the goal, yes. Personally, I do believe in that. That many things happen on the way sometimes, and you cannot build it, you know. Some organizations might help. Mercosur is one of them. Then another one who was created like 10 years later or more, which is UNASUR, which is not commercial, it's political, it's only for South America, which has to do dealing with energy, defense, infrastructure. All these steps tend to that, there's no doubt.
I'm asking you this because, I mean, not only historically and because it's a historical legacy of these heroes, but also because in the current times, you need big blocks if you want to develop yourself.
Exactly.
To remain a small margin country, it's difficult, and that's why I think maybe it's just my opinion, but having Argentina and Brazil and Chile together in the relationship, economic, political with Europe, with the United States, makes you stronger. It makes your economy develop stronger. But we are not in the position to ask because European Union is not doing so well. So, in our effort to actually create such a
that was the goal.
Exactly, we are now falling a little bit, failing in making this Europe stronger. I believe in the European Union. Don't understand me wrong, but the reality is that in the last years, the European Union proved that unfortunately cannot, let's say, speed up the process of having a political union, maybe just the economic union. But it helped, even though like that, it helped. And that's why I asked you about Latin America. I know it's an initiative also for Africa to have several countries which are more developed not to unite themselves territorial, because this cannot happen anymore, but to have a unification in the economic point of view, political point of view, in the report with other powers.
I mean, what you're saying is right. I mean, that's the goal. But sometimes it depends of the governments, you know. And it has been a difficult time for Latin America during this last, I would say, 10 years. And we are going to achieve it sooner or later.
What about the new president? Because many hopes are linked to him.
Well,
many hopes, many expectations.
I think so, because I have to say that I don't know, but many presidents from all over the world have visited Argentina in these 6 months, from everywhere. It was also there was planned a visit of President Johannes for August this year, but it was postponed for next year. All the other presidents of the region already visited Argentina. The thing is that President Macri comes with a different vision, which is the only one that we can have now, which is to regenerate the economy, to fight against corruption, zero tolerance for corruption. For that, you have to build up credibility, reliability. You know, the only way you are going to go into international markets. He did it immediately. For example, one example is in April this year. You know, he delivered 9.3 billion US dollars to some creditors from Argentina. It's called the Vulture Fund, which is equivalent to 7% of the Argentine creditors who rejected the restructuring, the negotiated restructuring of our debt, which means they went to claim for their funds at the New York courts. And doing this, we ended 14 years of default, and we returned to the international debt market. And this was after 3 months of government, you know, after finding a country with economy devastated and collapsed. Anyway, he achieved it. So we are now an active member.
Because to explain to the people, Argentina had a huge national debt.
Absolutely.
International debt,
yes, and was not respected many international commitments, was a sort of a closed economy everywhere.
Unfortunately, yes.
But now that changed completely. I have to tell you, for example, some news this very week. Right now in Buenos Aires, a forum, an investment and business forum, taking place with 1,600 business people from all over the world and Argentina, including 160 CEOs from the top international companies. Wow. One of them said this president has achieved in a few months to change the red ribbon, which is the ribbon that says don't go, you're prohibited, into the red carpet, which means
openness, transparency.
Absolutely, it's transparency, and to show not only a will, to show measures to open markets, for investments, and we already have fixed offers of $42,800 million to be invested right now.
How much?
And $42,800 million US dollars.
Okay.
And the expectancy for next year, that was announced by the government, is already from promises that have still to be fixed of $175,000 million. That's a lot of money.
It is. It is.
But of course, for that we have to still to show what we're doing with clarity, in a firm way. This president definitely is doing it, and all his team. You know, this is very good for Argentina. Well, here we are working for that.
And if I look to the Argentinian, the normal, the simple Argentinian living on a daily basis in Buenos Aires or wherever, how do you? I mean, you certainly read your newspapers at home. You are connected. Do they look to hope with hope? Do they see these measures, or it's? I mean, do they believe in these changes? Because we also had many expectations from our presidents. It doesn't matter who they were, and at some point, they failed in delivering. Every president came, or every government, not just presidents, and at some point they failed in delivering. And that's why I'm asking, how do you feel this after 12 years of having your...
Well, I have to be honest, very honest. I am honest,
well,
but I have to be honest to your question. Of course there are protests. For example, the previous government was subsidizing all services, which is, of course, you pay nothing. And this, in fact, is not a good thing only for poor people. It's much a better thing for rich people.
Yes.
Anyway, when you have to go to reality and show people, look, we have to change this, otherwise we go nowhere, we go deeply down. Of course there are protests. Yes, also from people who voted for President Macri, because they have to pay the electricity, they have, and probably they don't have enough money, inflation is still high, but it's only 6 months. All tendencies are showing that inflation will go down, that this will have good result, but what you're mentioning, what there's definitely no wish is to go back.
Okay.
And that makes you, this is what we have, we better work together, we don't want to go back to the 10 previous years.
We take another commercial break, Minister, and we'll be back after that with the last part, because I think it's interesting to develop more a little bit this subject, but also other subjects which are related to Argentina, Romania, your relation with the other powers of the world, because you are a big country. Publicitate.